Thank you so much for your interest and or purchase from Bluegrass Blueberries. In this video, we want to show you what to do when you receive a bare root plant. We really want you to be as successful as you can growing your plants. We take a lot of pride in knowing that we grow a very healthy plant, and we want you to be successful so that you can enjoy a lot of fruit from these plants. And so what we have here is in this box we've got blueberry plants, several different sizes, and we also have a grape plant, raspberry plant, and blackberry plant. And so in this box is all of that, so this is something similar to if we were to ship these plants to you, what it would look like. But before we open this box, I want to explain the different soil types for blueberry plants, the different type of soil for blackberry, raspberry, and grape plants. So blueberries really need acidic soil. If you can get the pH lower for them, it's really the best scenario. If you have really well composted soil, they can still draw the nutrients they need out of that, but generally they're going to need really acidic soil. So the way you do that is you need two things. One, peat moss, and the other thing is some mini pine bark mini nuggets. And that's what this bag is here. So you can see in here there's little bits of pine bark in here, and primarily peat moss. But the reason you want to mix that together is because the peat moss can get really dry and really compacted. And so if you mix in the pine bark, the mini pine nuggets, it allows the water to seep in better if it gets dry, and also allows it to drain better because sometimes the peat moss can also stay really moist. So it really helps if you can mix those two things together. And you can get this at Lowe's or Home Depot. Everything that I'm showing you here actually, you can get it at Lowe's or Home Depot, because wherever we ship these, you need to be able to get these resources, and so I wanted to show you everything that you can get at a store near to you whenever you receive your plants. So mini pine bark nuggets you can get at Lowe's or Home Depot, and then also sphagnum peat moss. If you just have a few little plants, you can get a small bag like this, or if you have a lot of plants or larger plants, it's better to get a whole bale like this right here. And it will say sphagnum peat moss, and the bales at Lowe's look a little different than this here, but this is the same thing that you're looking for. And so it's really compacted peat moss, and it comes out really dry. So whenever you get your soil ready, it's really important that you get it really wet, and that will help the plants out a lot as they take off. If it's too dry and you put the plants in there, it could dry them out. And then this fertilizer here is a Espoma product. It's called Holly Tone, and it will say azalea food. Really anything that's for azaleas or rhododendrons works really good for blueberries. So there's instructions on how to use this. Generally, whenever you're potting or you're planting in the spring, around March is a great time to apply this granule fertilizer, and it'll feed it for several months, and all you have to do is put it there at the base of the plant, and it is organic. So it's really, really good. And then for the blackberries, grapes, and raspberries, I use this soil here that I got from Lowe's, and it's an organic soil, and it's just for outdoor gardens, and that's the biggest thing. You want to get something that's for outdoor soil, potting soil, outdoor. Just don't use indoor potting soil because that would not be good. But if you can use some type of garden soil that's meant for outdoors, that works really good for the blackberries, grapes, and raspberries. And so that's what this soil is right here. It's really moist, and I got that from that bag. And then this is a all-purpose, general purpose, it's called Plant Tone, also a Espoma product, and it's organic as well. And it's a granular that you can put on the top of the plant. We'll have more videos on fertilizing and planting the plants in the spring. But now I want to get into actually what to do when you open up your box and how to get started with bare root plants. I will say that the organic product that we generally use is Fertrell. It's a really good product, but sometimes it's harder to find. And so we'll try to bring some links to all these things as well. So in this box here, we've got several different plants. And so as you're opening the box, the first thing that you'll see is some planting instructions from us. And so you can take a look at that front and the back both. And then also we've got some packing paper in here so that the plants don't move around and get broken within the box. And then you'll see here that we've got a bag of grapes and blackberries and raspberries in one bag here. And so here's the grape plant. It's a Concord. So the best thing to do once you receive your plant is to go ahead and put it straight in a bowl of water. And so this bowl is here. There's some water there, so I'm going to stick it in there just for a couple minutes. Is all you really need, just to make sure that those roots get really wet before you bed them in or prop them up. And so here's the Boyne raspberry. And here's the Natchez blackberry. And I went ahead and trimmed this one a little bit more. It's generally a little bit longer than that, but that's that one there. So here we've got the dirt, the soil I was talking about earlier. And so basically what you want to do is one of three things when you receive your raspberry, grape, and blackberry plant. You can, one, just bed it in some type of thing like this here. It's a log that has several holes here, holes on the bottom so that the water can drain through. And you can bed them down into this. Two, you can go ahead and get some type of container to plant it in until you're ready to put it into the ground. Or three, you can go ahead and plant them straight into the ground if your soil is ready for that. So, but if your ground is not quite ready and you want to go ahead and make sure that they are protected, you want to either bed them in or pot them up. So bedding them in or hilling them in is just basically making a hole in the dirt like this and then covering up all the roots so that the roots stay moist and stay protected. So let me go ahead and do that with these plants here. Alright, so those are bedded in, and it's really important. Many people want to try to bring them inside and indoors and protect them inside, but that's actually not the thing that's best for them. It's best that these go outdoors so they can go through their dormancy, so they get enough sunlight and so that they stay moist. The snow will keep them moist, the rain will keep them moist, so it's a really good idea to put these outside. Another thing that you could bed them down in is just a simple 2x6 that you screw in on the sides, and then put this type of soil down in there and bed those plants in outside in a 2x6, and that will work just fine. And then the second thing you can do is go ahead and plant them inside a container. And so until you're ready to plant them outdoors. So this grape plant here, really, whenever you're planting a grape plant, you can even trim back the roots a little bit if you wanted to. See how these are hanging down really, really far? So if you trim these roots, they'll actually stimulate that plant. And then on a grape plant, you also want to leave at least 3 fruit buds. So I can see one right here, and then one right here. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is make sure I've got my 3 fruit buds and just trim that right there. And so now I'm ready to go ahead and get this potted into this pot. And really, if you wanted to take the roots out farther, you could. Just personal preference really at that. And this is the same process if you're putting them straight into the ground as if I'm putting them into this pot right here. So I'm making my hole, I'm sticking the plant down in here, and then I'm just going to simply fill in dirt, pack in, make sure all those roots don't have any air pockets in there, and just pack that down. And so once I do this, then this will be fine all the way up until I'm ready to plant them, whenever that be. So if you got these in the winter time and you're not wanting to plant in the cold weather quite yet, you want to wait till spring, you can put them in a container like this, you can bed them in, and then just wait till spring, and then you can take it out of there and put it into the ground. And so those are the 3 things you can do. You can bed them in, put them in a container, or put them straight into the ground. And we'll have more videos on planting straight into the ground later on. That gives you an idea of what to do for your grapes and blackberries and raspberries. Now for the blueberries. So So the blueberries are a little bit different because they grow much differently than the blackberries and raspberries and grapes. So we have a few different sizes here. So once you receive these, you do want to put them straight into the water again, like the other ones. Just let them soak for a little bit. So this is a 2 to 3 foot plant here. This is a 12 to 18 inch plant, blueberry plant here. And you can notice that this one's labeled Legacy, this one's labeled Blue Crop. And then, if you receive a package and you've got one that just has one tag and then no tags on the other one, and they're in the same bag, that means they're all the same variety. So for instance, this one here is tagged and it says Biloxi on it. So all 3 of these plants are Biloxi. So I'm just going to go ahead and let that one soak for a little while as well. And so it's really the same idea. You can either bed these in the peat moss and pine bark, or you can pot them up as well. Or you can plant them into the ground. Now the plants that are this size though, you don't really want to plant straight into the ground. Because if you do that, the roots just aren't very big yet. Animal could step on it and really easily break it. So it's best to either bed it down, just simply like that, or to put it into a 1 gallon container like this here. And so basically just to pot it, you'd pot it like this. Make sure it's in there good. And then use your fertilizer in March and put it on top, and it should really take off if you do it that way. And so within 1 year, that plant here should look about like this. So last year, in the last spring, we planted this size in this container, and then we've grown it out to here. And then now this plant's in a really good place to go ahead and be potted into the ground. All right, and so then we've got our 12 to 18 inch plant. So it's going to be the same thing with this. Squeeze out some of that water. You can either bed it down into this, or you can pot it into a larger container like this. And really, this plant here in this type of container will be good for probably at least 3 years before you need to transplant it into a larger container. But basically, you just kind of push it down around the edges, and you may need a little bit more soil. Push it down to make it stable. And then you can let it grow in this container. Then after a year, you'd have a plant that looks a lot like this. I don't know if you can see from there, but there's several fruit buds on this 3 gallon container here, and just really pretty plant. And at this point, this is going to do really well putting it straight into the ground. And then lastly, we have a 2 to 3 foot plant here. And this one, the roots are really large, and the plant is really tall, as you can see, so it really could go straight into the ground. When you do put it in the ground though, it's a good idea to put that peat moss and some mini pine nuggets in that area, so that so that it will thrive and do well. But if you're not ready to plant it quite yet, you just want to bed it down, then you can put it in something like this and just pack it down, and it will stay fine like that until you're ready to plant. The other thing that you can do with this plant here is put it straight into a larger container like this, and if you plant it in here, then you could probably keep it in there for about 10 years and it would produce a lot of fruit. Just make sure you're using that peat moss and the pine bark in there, and then just make sure that there's a hole at the bottom. And this one has a couple holes on the sides at the bottom as well. You don't want moisture just sitting at the bottom of something, whether you put it in a lug or whether you put it anywhere. You don't want just water sitting, because that can cause disease and some other issues. But you can put it in that and it would live quite a long time. So just remember again that whichever way you plant it, make sure you're leaving them outside, especially in this dormant state. They need to go through their dormancy. They need that sunlight. They need to stay moist, and the snow and rain will definitely keep them moist. The only exception to that is if in March, April, more like April, when our plants are starting to get green and starting to green up. If we send it far up north, then you just need to make sure that if you're about to get a really hard freeze, that you do bring it inside, only if it's starting to green out. But if it's already dormant, you don't have to worry about it. They're good in freezing temperatures as long as their roots are moist. So that's the only exception. If you open up the box and see that they're starting to get green and it's 15 degrees outside, you probably want to wait until that cold front is done and then bring them outdoors. So that's the only exception. Generally, if they're in this dormant state like this, make sure that you bring them outdoors. And if you have any questions, just let us know about that. And so that's what you need to do whenever you receive bare root plants. You just want to make sure that those roots are real moist. So either by bedding, put it in a container, or if your ground is ready and and the plant is big enough to do that, then you can put them straight into the ground. So I hope this video was really helpful for you. We really want your plants to do well. And thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, please let us know.